to Speak, a platform for artisans to speak candidly about their career in the arts and also to weigh in on some of the creative industry's biggest issues. My name is Jennifer DiMarco. I'm a novelist, poet, playwright, filmmaker, musician, and game designer. And today, I'm speaking with Michelle Lee, the author of the Raven's Journey series and the I Spy series, among others. Thank you for being on Speak, Michelle.
Thank you.
So the first thing I always like to tell folks, you know what, I'm not even going to dive into the first thing. I like to ask folks, holy moly, Michelle, holy moly. Now you made a joke. Maybe I just need to not write as much. And I said, don't you dare. I think you might be senior editor Brianne at Blue Forge Press. I think you might be her favorite author. Oh, now I'm really going to get in trouble. Yeah. But this actually isn't even all your work, your current work with Blue Forge Press. You've done the I Spies, which stands for, by the way, Supernatural Paranormal Investigations, SPI. There's actually another one of these adorable little pocket-size, kind of sexy, funny mysteries that are paranormal. Yes. There's another one that is out that we just don't have a copy of right now. And then you wrote a little unnerving, spooky little guy here, another pocket size, yes. Which is The Haunting of Orchard House, The Pulse, for anyone looking for it. And then you were in Unnerving, volumes 2 and 3, Super, which we've talked about on this show before, the Super Anthology. And you were also, and I have to show this one off because I have to admit I really love it. You were also in Rise, which was a new poetry collection of women's voices, women's lives that Blue Forge Press did.
Incredibly proud of that one.
You know what? I think we should start there. Me too.
Poetry is incredibly personal, and it's often far scary, for me at least, it's far scarier for me to give out poetry than it is a full-length novel, even if I poured myself into those pages.
Yeah.
It's a different character. You're behind something else. Poetry, that's just you. You're naked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's far scarier. So I'm incredibly proud of all of the women that are in this book.
I'm gonna agree with you, and I don't even think I can say it better, Michelle, because it's not a big volume, you know? No. There's no filler.
But it's raw.
Yeah.
It has power to those words.
I am incredibly proud of this one.
Yes.
Incredibly proud. And that's actually going to be an annual thing now.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm
excited too. But Raven's Journey and I Spy, they're very different, but they are both urban fantasy ultimately. Mm-hmm. Other than the fact that these are urban fantasy and your poetry and your short stories, are your short stories in Super, Unnerving 2 and Unnerving 3, are they also urban fantasy?
No, the Super stories are based on actual people in my life, and I have an uncle who is paralyzed, and I have a cousin who has a daughter that has Rett syndrome, and so I used them as the characters in those two stories. They're just contemporary.
Super, for readers or for watchers today that haven't read Super, Super is actually a anthology. It's Super, Unexpected Heroes Arise. It's stories about folks that live with a disability or a chronic medical condition that impacts their everyday life and how they find unexpected strength from that. And I know I spoke with another author in a previous episode of Speak about it, and I loved how so far everyone I've spoken to, they're either writing about themselves or they're writing about someone close to them in their family. And it really was our chance to say, hey, these really are some of our unsung heroes. You know, let's go there, let's embrace this, and I really liked that. And what about Unnerving? Did you do urban fantasy?
Those are more horror. So the second anthology, that story was just kind of like a psychological mind warp, and the third one I just kind of went with the horror trope there, stretched my boundaries quite a bit because I read it but I don't write it.
Oh, you do read? That was going to be a question to me. That was going to be a question I wanted to ask you. That's interesting, because I remember you saying, boy, I have not written horror before, and your significant other had said to you, just, here's what, did he gave you like an idea or something, like a little seed? Is that right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He just throws, so when I say, I need an idea,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do, I need to write something, and he'll just pick some totally random comment and fling it out there thinking I'm going to just laugh it off. And
Yeah.
I actually took it and spun a story with it.
I absolutely love that.
He's like, well, you used that? I sure did.
And to great effect, I think, in my opinion. And that's another annual series, which I'm sure Brianne is going to invite you back for.
I told her that she probably wouldn't after reading that. And she said, oh no, you're on the list.
Well, she's honest. She's honest.
She is.
If you wanted, is there one thing that you would like people to know? Kind of like Michelle Lee 101, or, and this is fine, Raven's Journey 101, I Spy 101, something that you would want people to know before they dive into the series or before they start to explore your work?
They're drastically different. Drastically different.
Mm.
These are just fun.
Yeah, they
So
are.
it's just you want to escape reality for a little bit and laugh,
Mhm.
then pick up these. If you are more of a person that wants to identify with somebody and feel not alone because you're struggling, then I would go that route.
Yeah.
Because these touch more on situations that happen more frequently than people think.
Mm-hmm.
And these are situations that will never happen.
Yeah,
Realistically.
Yes, most of us
Yes.
don't wind up, having to solve paranormal mysteries. Most of us.
I mean, purple people eaters.
Yes.
How many of those have you met?
Okay, Michelle, you're putting me on the spot here. You're supposed to ask me questions in a different segment,
Oh, sorry.
Once with purple. Okay, I don't want to talk about that. Okay, so I think that's actually really vital because I know personally in my own reading pleasure, like Charles Stross. I love Charles Stross, but I love his hard science fiction. When I had read all of his hard science fiction, I went, oh, look at that. He's got a series of, and I picked the first one up, and it's sci-fi comedy. And I was horrified. I'm like, here's like one of my like all-time favorite hard science fiction writers, and I'm like, what is this? And to me, it's not, but to me, absolute not worth reading. I'm like, no, this is not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for escapism. I'm not looking to be entertained in this kind of like campy sci-fi way.
Yeah.
And so I really like that. So it's not that folks that enjoy the Raven's Journey won't enjoy I Spy or vice versa. It's just because they're both urban fantasy, one is urban fantasy fun.
Yes.
And one is very intense. Let's look at the human condition. Let's look at the dynamics of community and being there for each other, but with urban fantasy trappings.
Yes.
Okay.
So you'll get emotion, and there's some sarcasm and humor in there.
Oh, yeah.
But not the same as this.
More like you would find in real life.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
With urban fantasy twists.
Yeah, whereas like I think a perfect example is I Spy Witch Recipes, which I have to. Yeah. And I want to talk about that as well in just a second. A kitchen witch believes her ingredients have been altered. And how do you say your main character's name? Do you say it Risa or
Risa?
Risa. And Risa takes the case to help Nina solve the problem before hordes of people go unintentionally crazy after eating Nina's food. And I'm like, okay, that pretty much sums it up. It's a witch with a food truck. I mean, can we just stop right there? So I think that's a very good example. Now, let's stick with I Spy for just a second.
Okay.
You are one of the authors who has active social media. One of the first authors we may have spoken to who really does have active social media since Speak began. And you posted and said to your readers, to the world, to the internet, hey guys, this isn't like a pay-to-play thing or anything like that. I write this series. It's called I Spy. They're really fun, blue flash, pocket-sized books. Da, 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 da. Would anyone like me to make them a character? Tell me, did you literally leave it that open, or was it like, give me a character and a plot, or what was it?
I did leave it that open.
Wow.
So I just said, does anybody want to be a character? And I posted it on the author's social media and my own. So I went both routes to cover a broader range of people.
That's
because
nice.
I do have family that is kooky enough to want to be here, because they are.
And you say you based the witch Nina on your mom.
Yeah.
Did you just do that to do it, or did your mom say, put me in one?
She said, I want to be in one.
She did,
And
okay.
I asked her. So all of them, when people responded that they wanted to be a character, I would ask them, do you want to be a human character? Or do you want to be a mythological or creature or
Yeah.
a fantasy type character?
Yeah.
And so I gave them the option. You tell me what you want. Do you
Yeah.
want me to use your name? Do you want me to use a made up name? Some people wanted their real names and others didn't.
Right. Yeah.
So I went with it and I said, okay, what type of person are you? And so my mom, she's like, I want to be a witch. She actually made me rewrite parts of this, rewrite it, because she said, I'm not mean enough.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you're not mean.
So, okay, now wait, now we have to back up, because now you're telling me things I don't even know. And I'm like, wait a minute, I thought I knew everything about I Spy. Because I work with the Blue Flash division, I'm like, I'm an expert here. I'm the master of
Yeah.
Blue Flash. But, so, you wrote this, you wrote the story,
Yeah.
then you let your mom see it, obviously, before you turned it in.
Yep.
Do you let everyone see it before?
Yes.
Wow.
Because if I feel like,
No, absolutely.
yeah, that's their character. They wanted me to do it. Yes, I created the story.
Mm-hmm.
I put the aspects of the story that they wanted in there.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's something that they didn't like, I wanted to fix it because that's for them.
Yeah.
So I let them read it, and they either get back to me and say, yeah, good, or I don't have time, go ahead and send it in.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair.
Done deal. You're going to be in a book.
So, okay, now another question about I Spy. See, now I'm just getting my I Spy fix. That's what it is. When I want escapism and fun, this is what I read. So that's why you can't say, well, I'll just write less. I'm like, but then I have no escapism, Michelle. Do you have an existing story or like a germ, a seed of idea before people talk to you, and then you try to fit them to that? Or you're like, no, those I just write, as standalones without a request?
So far, only this first one
Mm-hmm.
was written without a request. And this was the one that you said, hey, Michelle, can you
Yes.
write me a story using these parameters?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many have there been so far?
There are 8. I'm working on number 9 right now.
So is number 9 a request as well?
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
All the way up to 14. So I have a list that I'm working off of. And I don't really have an idea of what the storyline is until I pull up my computer and I have it open and then, okay, well, they want to be this. So what ridiculous idea can I find to make people laugh?
Yeah.
And so I try to do a little bit of research before when somebody tells me if they want to be a creature that flies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do you want like a fairy type creature or like a dragon?
Yeah.
What type of creature are you talking? Some people say, I'll leave that up to you. Others, you're like, no, I think I want to be a Pegasus,
Yeah.
for example.
Okay.
Okay, you want to be a Pegasus. So then I try to do a little bit of research to find a creature or a legend or a myth about a creature that we might not know about, like with the one that's just out now, Knock Me Up.
Yeah.
Coblinai. It's a Welsh thing.
Oh.
So I did a little bit of research on that and made that the villain. So that way you can get a little bit of knowledge of some things that maybe you might not have heard of before.
Yeah, I like that, kind of building someone's repertoire of world mythology.
Yeah.
And cryptids, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to show off the covers, Michelle, because we don't have our beautiful set shelves. Supply chain issues. You feel me, Michelle?
Done by the lovely Brianne.
Yes, yes. And Actually, that's a very good point. It's like, wait, talk about knowing how to do a cover that fits a series.
Yes.
I think these really are like, look, this is about Detective Sanders. These are, there's a depth here that these don't need, first of all.
Yes.
And I think that's also important to say. It's not that these are not as worthy. You know, it's just this is a different kind of experience.
It's short.
Yeah, and
So
I like what you just said, they're fun.
The depth of the character comes out across the series,
Yes.
not in one book.
Yes, because it's all Detective Sanders. It's
Yes.
all, and it builds. I love it. So you have requests through 14.
Yeah.
Well, of course, yeah, you couldn't really, do you outline?
Not really.
Cool.
I'm a fly by the seat of my pants.
Really?
So when it strikes, I just write. Sometimes I can get one of these out in 5 days. And then I'll...
One of these?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'll sit on it.
Okay. All right, I'm okay. I'm back. Whew.
Nope, not those.
Yeah.
These. And I'll sit on it for a day or two, go back through and do my editing, and then I'll send it off to them. And while they're reading it, I'll do another edit and be like, okay, here, Brianne, here you go.
Yeah. And
Done.
do you have a set writing routine? Or are you a writer, like when inspiration strikes, I grab the first, or somewhere in between?
Both.
Yes, somewhere in between. Fantastic.
Yeah. So I know for this series here,
Yeah.
all 8 of those, this was originally going to be a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was writing the first book, I realized, oh, no, there's going to be more. And then by the time I hit the 3rd or 4th book, I realized that there was 8.
Now, okay, and this year, the Raven's Journey is wrapped now.
Yeah.
And the only reason I know that is because I know that Brianne is currently working on a new series of yours, which we're not going to touch on because I want to actually have you back for those in the 2nd season of Speak. But for Raven's Journey, you did do something that I have not seen before that I thought was really interesting. And there has been a reoccurring joke at my expense here on Speak about me mispronouncing things, whether it's an author's last name or a character's name. Brianne said, just call the main character of Raven's Journey, Airy. Just call her Airy. And I was like, I almost said Ara, and I'm like, no, it's Airy. She said, remember, it's like air. Oh, okay. For the Raven's Journey, your focus shifts. The see me revealed, see me go, see me believe, see me overcome. That focuses on Airy, but then Hawk and Ronan and is it Stolas, that's members in her community. Those are her closest kind of, I don't want to use confidant, that's not quite the right word, but those are her comrades in arms in life.
Yep.
And so the books 6, 7, and 8 are actually kind of more their stories.
Yep.
I thought that it was almost like it's a 5-book series, but here's 3 extra books just for those of you who really loved one of these characters.
So that is what the whole intent was. By the time I reached, then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to switch views because these characters are still talking to me.
Yeah.
They're not done yet. And that's what happened with the series that Brianne has right now. It was originally 2 books. And I said, it's not done.
Yeah.
It's not done. And I had to tell her, well,
It's 3, right? Ultimately, it was 3 that got turned in. Yeah.
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 So it did, and I felt like these characters needed to tell their story. So while Ariella is still quite the focus of the storyline, it's told from the point of view of the other people.
Oh, yes, right.
Their
It's not that she's not
perception.
there. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. So you do also get more of Aerie. So it's, I did like that. I think, I wish more authors would trust themselves and their readers. And again, if you're like, no, I only want her, I only want to stay, I'm like, but she's here. But it does really feel like bonus work, like it's extra gifts to the readers. Because there are so many series that I've read and I'm like, look, I think the main character's fantastic. But, boy.
That supporting character has a voice that is speaking.
And like, that's why I read these. Every scene they're in, I'm like, ooh, boy, is that relatable. Wow. You really feel like I'm in that person's skin. I'm that person. And I thought that was really cool. So I love that. And I did want to point that out. one of the things that we do on Speak is that we ask artisans no right or wrong answers, just to weigh in with their opinion, totally just from your perspective, of some of the big issues in the creative industry today. The first one that I wanted you to weigh in on is, do you feel that the online stores, and I mean, let's not pretend, I'm primarily talking about Amazon,
Yeah.
are killing, as the media loves to say, the bricks and mortar stores. And admittedly, I always say, and I always tell people why I use that phrase, bricks and mortar, instead of real world stores. It's like, to me, they're all real world stores, guys. I mean, it seems that the evolution of book selling, it was just natural that it would evolve onto the internet. So I always try to say, is it just evolution? Are they really impacting each other in a negative way? And the way I like to ask this question is, of course, what are your feelings on it? What are your opinions? But also, when you want to buy a book to read, where do you go?
Both. I am equally divided on that.
Hmm.
So when I'm traveling, I will take my Kindle with me because I can pack 30 books on a Kindle, which is a lot easier than toting around a bag full of books.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so accessible.
Yes.
Yeah.
And realistically, you run out of shelf space in your own home.
True. No, absolutely.
But there are authors that I will go seek out and buy. And I love going into bookstores and touching, especially poetry books. Because they're more personal. And you might, on Amazon, you can get a little snippet of what might be in there. But if you can look through there and some phrase catches your eye, you're just going, I know I need this book. I need to have this. And there's nothing quite like the feel of holding a book in your hand.
Yeah.
So
it was 2020 that when I finally broke down and got Kindle, and for me it was accessibility issues.
yes.
It was like it was a no affiliation link, hashtag not sponsored. It was a Kindle Paperwhite.
Yes.
So it very much, and it's true, it does very much look like paper.
Correct.
But for me, it was something that was lit, so I didn't have to have a bedside light on or a book light, and I can change the size of the text.
You can. You can also change the backlight.
Yes. So I was like, boy, this is something I had not thought of. What I, of course, had thought of was exactly what you're saying. Eventually, you run out of space.
Yes.
Unless you own your own library, meaning an entire building filled.
I don't know who has that.
Yeah. And I did really love that option to travel, carry several things with me. But yeah, I mean, more than anything else, it was the accessibility issue.
Yeah,
It
as
just
long as
couldn't
you
be
have
beat.
Wi-Fi, you can download a book.
Yes, that's also true.
It's at the touch of your fingers.
I think it was almost 10 years ago, actually, that I wound up very unexpectedly in the hospital with my son. And I would not leave his side. And I had my backpack with me, and it had my iPad in it and the Kindle app. Just being able to download that way, and I'm like, boy, this is keeping me sane.
It's a lifesaver.
Yeah, it really is. So I know we're talking about the digital devices as opposed to shopping digital. Talk to me about, what has your experience been with browsing? This seems to come up a lot. We've had authors on Speak say, well, in a bookstore you can really browse and it's harder to browse online. And I always argue, wow, every time I go into a bricks and mortar store, I see on the shelves, I could almost close my eyes and say, okay, am I in science fiction? All right, there's going to be 5 books by this author, 5.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm seeing all the same things. I'm seeing very few independent authors. And yet also, because there's so much content published every year, and also there are so many great canonical books, there's so many great classic works, I can be trying to find a book that has sold literally millions of copies, and I'm like, how can you not have this book?
Rebecca. I walked into a Barnes & Noble once and could not find Rebecca.
Oh, okay. There you go. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
You have got to be kidding me.
Mm-hmm.
Rebecca?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's I feel like it is a toss-up. Now, Some of our authors have said, "Oh, I love browsing online." You can go to the category. I'm like, "Wow, that's true. You can break it down."
You can break it down by genre, and you find the independents. You find
Yes.
the ones that you can't see
Yeah.
in a big store that focuses mainly on the mainstream authors.
Right, because I always argue. I say, nothing against the bricks and mortar stores. They've got massive overhead.
Yeah.
Not to say that a company like Amazon doesn't have overhead, but there's absolutely no comparison.
Right.
It's just the massive quantity of content of all kinds of things that Amazon can manage with the money that would be the monthly budget of a Barnes and Noble superstore.
Yeah.
There's just no comparison. Amazon is going to have way more
Hands
content.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really not that hard to browse it either, because you can search on pretty much anything.
Yeah, that is true.
Anything, and you'll get
Yeah.
all sorts of things, whether it's in the genre you're looking for or not.
Mm-hmm.
It still pops up,
Mhm.
and you're thinking, maybe I'll try this, and that's
Yeah.
how you discover new people.
Mm-hmm. And I before the cameras were on tonight, you and I actually talked a little bit about Amazon author pages. So like if you find a book, you can actually click the author's name, and it should, in most cases, take you to that author's profile page right there on Amazon. And that should list all their books on Amazon. From that page, can you get to an author's social media as well?
I think there is a spot where you can list your social media.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
I probably haven't done that part yet.
If it's there, but it'd be,
But-
that would be interesting. I would have
It
to
is, but
have
you
to
can
poke
create
around.
your own bio,
That's true.
and you can say whatever it is you want to say. You can populate it with a picture of whatever you want,
Yeah.
and everything you have is listed there. You manage it yourself,
Mhm.
so kind of puts you in charge of your own.
And it's completely free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see it. You can run reports on what has sold and what hasn't sold.
Mhm.
There may be a time delay on some of it, but
But still, yeah.
you can still get a good reading on it. It's a good tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I use it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, and again, it's free. And I also, even though I understand that nothing is devoid of controversy and politics in this day and age, but in my opinion, I would rather be on Amazon where my books are being sold and run my social media page there than on, say, Facebook, for instance.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just me. I mean, I know, and some folks are like, no, I have my Amazon page and I do Instagram. Whatever. It really depends on what platform someone feels most comfortable on. Yeah.
Social media is a hard beast
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not a very active social media person, so I have to force myself.
Naturally, you're not. Yeah.
You need to go, you just had a book come out. Why haven't you posted that yet?
Mm.
And I'll go and I'll find the link on Amazon and copy it into a post, and I'll post it.
Mm-hmm.
That way it's one is leading to the other, and so
Yes.
you can direct traffic to that page.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And even if you printed like I did, I printed business cards that has the Amazon link on there.
Yeah, because it's something like Amazon.com/Michelle It's something like that,
Yeah.
roughly. Yeah, I think it's
Characters
yeah,
in
yeah. But it is something it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Content. 600,000, a little bit over 500,000 books in America alone, not worldwide, in America alone, published every year, be it self-published, corporate published, independent published, whatever it is. 600,000. That blew my mind.
That's a lot of books.
How do you feel your work stands out?
Well, that's a tough question because
It is.
when you really want to break it down, nothing anybody writes is original anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Every trope has been done.
Mhm.
Every
That's why they're tropes.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's the characters themselves that make it stand out. So the more you pour into a character,
Mhm.
the more you're going to stand out as the person because you created this.
Yeah.
So it's the character voices that differentiate authors,
Mm-hmm.
especially ones that are in series.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Patterson and his murder series,
Yeah.
Stephen King,
Mhm.
Dean Koontz with his Odd Thomas.
Yeah.
So there's that character's voice draws you to it. It's, okay, I really like this book. I'm going to look to see what else he has. And suddenly you've read everything this author's ever written. You've Facebook stalked them, Instagram stalked them, looked it up. You're crazy.
Yeah.
Because you really like the way that those characters are developed. So I think what sets me apart is the characters themselves. Risa is quite the character.
She is.
And so is Ariella.
She is. I mean, they're so different, but they are such strong characters. Now, hang on. Just to celebrate urban fantasy in general, I'm going to see, it's very cold tonight, but I'm going to see if I can snap my fingers and get us both a glass of water, because it occurred to me the host of this show failed today and didn't put water on our table. Hang on just one second.
I might have.
Ta-da! Okay, so now we have water.
Magic.
It is, it's like magic. So, I guess then it would be just natural to say you consider your work to be character driven.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that if you have a good character that is compelling and deep and complex, flawed, not perfect, doesn't really matter what the storyline is, because you're reading the character.
Yeah.
You're living the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, the storyline plays a part of it,
Yes.
because there has to be something to keep this character going. But
Sure. Yeah. Why are we spending a week with this character?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you have a character that's flat and not drawn out or not compelling, the storyline is not going to carry.
And I like that you made a point to say not perfect. Flawed.
Flawed is real.
Vulnerabilities. Insecurities. I don't feel, I would hope that people would come to a story for the core of humanity.
Yes.
For the relatable, accessible, wow, I have felt that, as opposed to rip, roar, and plot there. And again, that's, totally fine if that's what you're looking for. But for your work, I think people should come for the character. They should come to feel like they are walking beside someone that they truly know them, they've known them their whole lives. And that's what I love. If I had a paranormal mystery that I needed solving, there's only one person I would go to. Now, Detective Sanders is not the only paranormal detective I've ever read books about, which I love you saying. These archetypes, these tropes, they're archetypes and tropes for a reason.
Yeah.
But if my choice was to call up I Spy or call up Anita Blake, no, it's hands down. No, Detective Sanders, please take my case. I mean, I'm sorry. There's a humor there that I love. And actually, I don't want to talk about this too much, because I know what I want to talk about more about Raven's Journey. But on the surface, and I think I have, in my ignorance, before I had actually read more in Raven's Journey and before I had finished more of I Spy, I compared Raven's Journey to the Anita Blakes, and it was because of those small surface facts. Ari is poly. She has an incredibly tight, close-knit group of friends. And I'm like, oh, it's kind of like the Anita Blakes. And I mean, Brianne just gave me this like scathing look, and she's like, absolutely not. And what, of course, now I know is that no, Laurel K. Hamilton's Anita Blakes, they kind of would fall somewhere between I Spy and Raven's Journey, because the depth and the emotional weight that Ari carries and that you explore deeply in the Raven's Journey, I have never seen in any of Anita's works. Sometimes there's big issues that are touched on, but this is a focal point, and which leads us, of course, to our question. We talked a little bit before the cameras were on, and I said, look, I always have alternate questions, if something is too personal, or if someone's just like, oh, that might give too much away, for the plot or something like that. I always have something else I can ask. But if you can, would you talk to us about, there is a theme in The Raven's Journey that is just all too true today, especially. Mm-hmm. But really, some could argue always, and it's not just in America either, is that mental health institutions, the system in place to promote, to ensure mental health is so deeply flawed and so overwhelmed and so broken that often we do wind up turning to our community, our closest confidants, comrades, friends, family, whatever it is, and we wind up helping each other. Hey, I've been there. Or even if I haven't, I'll walk with you.
Yeah.
And that comes up time and time again. I mean, to me, that is the core. Why did you decide to do it? Do you see it that way? Talk to me about community versus institutions.
I do see it that way. A lot of that kind of trauma comes from fear. And it's not just domestic violence or sexual assault. It's not just that. When you tell somebody something has happened to you, they tend to look at you differently. Whether they intend that or not, that's what happens. So either you say, oh, I have cancer. All of a sudden you're treated with kid gloves. It's not intentional. It's not said to make you feel set apart.
Yeah.
But it happens. So you tend not to say anything, especially with domestic assault, domestic violence, sexual assault, any of that stuff. It carries a heavy stigma with it. And almost every female I know has gone through it. And nobody talks about it. So the Me Too movement helped a little bit bring that out. But there's a fear. So when you tell somebody, I was raped, if they make you talk to an authority, you are now subjected to a rape kit. Intensive questioning that you're not ready to deal with yet, because you can't even process what just happened to me. And now you want me to expose it all to you and try to remember, and I'm reliving it, and oh no, you can't remember it. So it's easier to find that person that you feel safe with. It's a safe person, and you can say it, and it comes out in its own time. And if they can handle it, great. If they can't, you tend to withdraw and not talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And then you're just carrying that trauma, and it builds, and it affects your everyday life. And so many people walk that path. Mental health people will, if you can find a really good counselor, sure, they can help you. But it's not instant. None of it is instant, ever.
There's a lot of restarting. Okay, I really didn't connect with this person. I'm going to put myself through this all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a lot of fear.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe the health system around this type of stuff. Is it's fear, because why are you going to a counselor? What's wrong with you? What happened? Even if that's not how it's intended, that's what the person you're talking to hears. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, I agree.
So it automatically sets you apart. And everybody wants to be an individual, but nobody wants to be set apart in that category. Because now, don't talk to her about that. Okay, you can talk to me about anything you want to. I might have a reaction to it, but I don't want you to feel like you can't talk to me.
Yeah.
So Ariella she's gonna bare her soul to these people that she just met, because she feels that connection with them and she feels safe. And in doing so, she's healing. So the main theme of this series is healing, not just for her. All of them are healing from something, and it takes one person doing it to herself to show them, oh, maybe in her healing I can do that too. It's an empowering thing. It's not just females, it's across the board.
Absolutely.
It's everybody.
I think that we do need to embrace the truth that everyone's path to healing or path of healing looks different.
Yes.
Some people, absolutely, they're going to find a therapist, they're going to connect with that therapist, they're going to find what they need there. Or like even reporting to authorities, because you mentioned intensive questioning, and you're subject to a rape case. This is physically and emotionally and spiritually invasive.
It is.
But some people need to do that. They absolutely need to report.
And if you statistically look at it, there's a lot less that don't than do because
Yes.
of that violation.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. You were just violated in the worst way possible, and now you're going to subject yourself to it all over again. So
Yeah.
why do that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna bottle it up until I have a mental breakdown, and then the mental institutions are, well, you're mentally unstable. No, really, I'm not mentally unstable. I'm trying to fix myself
Mm-hmm.
because I went through something that's incredibly traumatic, and
Yeah.
you're minimalizing it.
Yeah. I remember getting off the phone after making my final appointment, a kind of a very purposeful, like, in-closure appointment after 10 years of weekly therapy, and feeling like I was graduating from something. And a family member walked into the room and said, very emotional, what's going on? And I said, no, I just made my appointment for my final therapy session. It's been 10 years now. I always knew you were fine. And they meant it in the, like, you're so strong, in the best possible way. And I remember just thinking, wow, you don't know me at all. If that's what you feel was the appropriate thing to say to a 20-year-old in this moment, holy moly. And again, said with absolute, love in their heart. But I think it's such a deeply, well, of course, any kind of violation, physical, spiritual, emotional, any kind of abuse, recovery. Again, we're all different people, so we have to find that recovery in a different way.
Yeah, and everybody has suffered something.
Sure, yes, 100%.
Do not get out of life unscathed.
Yes, it's true. It's true. Now, we're going to go a little bit lighter. Well, first of all, actually, before we go a little bit lighter, for myself, for your editor, Brianne, and for everyone, men and women, because you're absolutely right. It is incredibly important. And that whether it's physical, sexual, emotional, whatever it is, yeah, you're right. We all face something. Mm-hmm. So let's try to be at least kind to one another, I guess. Thank you, I guess, is what I wanted to say, especially from me and Brianne. Not only do we feel these books, The Raven's Journey changes lives, honestly and truly, but I also really appreciate and value the I Spies, because I guess knowing you, I know that little bit of your journey, and knowing the things that I'm not going to say overcome, because I don't particularly like that, because I don't particularly feel like I've overcome any trauma it's part of me.
Yeah.
I don't want to overcome myself. I don't want to go beyond myself. I just want to keep growing. But it's like a ring in a tree. Yeah. But so you're going to read today from The Raven's Journey.
I am.
And I love that you said you are one of those people who will go into a bricks and mortar store and open a book and will something catch your eye. And on Amazon, they have that feature, look inside the book.
That's right.
And I know some of our authors, I said, have one page ready to read. That's it. And they freaked out. They didn't know what they were going to do. And some folks were like, oh yeah, I always know exactly what I'm going to read. And you were you're like, what? How do there's so many.
Yeah.
So I see it here beside you. You've decided you're going to read from book 6, from Hawk.
Mainly because that's where the viewpoint switches. This is Ariella's story, and here, yes, it's still Ariella's story, but it's told from a different viewpoint.
I like that.
And the main character in here, Onita, she's somebody that really talked loudly to me. When I first created her, I was just thinking, okay, she's just a side character.
Yeah.
She's just a small part of this story. No, she really has a story. She grew, because it's often the quietest people that you find the deepest pools. They just...
That's the only time I'm going to embarrass you the whole interview. Promise.
Right.
That right was Michelle saying, "You liar." Okay.
I was doing my best not to say that.
Yeah.
But that's really what it is she is a very quiet character, and she is a very strong woman.
Yeah.
And I think that's a theme across all of the books, is that my female characters are strong. Not because they were born to be Margaret Thatcher and I'm strong and I know everything and I'm powerful and everybody's going to hear my voice.
Yeah.
No, but because of what they went to get through to become this person. So
They're forged.
They're
by
flawed.
Yeah.
Even Risa, she has her insecurities that come out. She has her issues, and she does her best to get through them.
Yeah.
Ariela's is a bit more emotional, but it's the same.
Yeah.
Any series that you're going to see come from me are going to have a strong female character.
That's the through line.
That is.
Yes, absolutely.
And this has quite a few strong male characters as well. But Onita, I have a super fan who could not wait to see Onita's story. She had no idea I had written it because it wasn't released yet.
Oh, okay.
And so it was just these first 5 that were out. And she had shown up to one of the book events with her whole family. Which, I mean, bless her heart, Brianne was in the background quietly smiling. She's like, "You can do it." When I just wanted to hide under the table.
Because you're a little shy.
A little bit.
You're a little bit shy, yeah.
A little bit. And she had actually made a picture for me and baked me some cookies, which were good. And the picture was about Anita. And when I told her that that was the next book that was coming out, she was overjoyed. And that kind of stuck with me. So I was going, maybe Onita needs to be heard.
Yeah.
But it's still Ariela's story.
Yes. Yeah.
Just told from another strong woman's viewpoint. So,
and just to be clear, before you read, Michelle, it's not, and correct me if I'm wrong, are you revisiting stories from the first? No, it's moving forward from here. See, I think that's very unique too, because I think we have seen some authors where, like they'll tell us the same story from a different character's perspective, but we are getting the same story again. I think there's some validity there. That's perfectly fine. But these are new perspective, but also new stories.
yes.
Yeah.
So they have all of the characters that, except for Stolas.
Yeah.
Which actually, that's my favorite one out of that.
Really?
I don't know why. It is. But he didn't show up until later in this series. But from the beginning, Onita and all of her counterparts and all of that, they all showed up in book 1, and they were there throughout all of the series. They're there the whole time. So you're growing with all of them.
Yeah.
And so by the time you get to here, you know who she is. You know she's a strong person.
Yeah.
You know that she carries something, but you don't know what. And her voice just kept coming out. It just kept coming out. It's like, okay, well, clearly I'm not done.
So this is going to be a 1-page reading from Hawk, which is book 6 in the Raven's Journey, by Michelle Lee. Give us our page, Michelle.
Well,
You can do it.
maybe.
We need Brianne. We need Brianne to just, like I said, go, you can do it, Michelle.
Well, silently with that little snicker on her face. So do I have to explain about where it is? Because I literally just opened up to a page.
You can absolutely just, you can say something if you'd like, but if you just want to read, you know, as if someone has just opened the book and started reading because they're in a bookstore and they're browsing.
So the page I chose to read from starts mid-sentence, so I'm going to
Totally fair.
back it up to this last paragraph so that there's a little bit of context.
Fair. You can do it.
She held her phone out to him, and Degataga looked at the displayed picture and felt his heart clench at the sight of the girl he had come to love like a little sister. Ariella's wings were on full display, and her knees bent in front of her, her arms crossed over her knees, her chin resting on her forearms. The dark circles under her eyes and gaunt look on her sad face hit him hard. She looked with despair out in front of her, almost at the camera, her gaze intent on something they couldn't see. Even more surprising was the land around her that had been barren of life after Spearfinger was teeming with life. Grass and wildflowers bloomed around her, the scorched earth now covered with green and what appeared to be little saplings. The phone dinged again and another picture came through. The angel in the same spot as she was in the other photo, but with no wings this time, sitting cross-legged, tears streaming down her face as she had her hands buried in the blackened earth, willing life into it. A before and after set. Degataga suddenly held the phone back out to Oneida so she could see the second picture. He watched Oneida bite her lip and try to hold back the emotions that the stark picture brought out. Even if you didn't know Ariella, the sight was a sucker punch to the heart in its candidness. Sometimes I forget how hard this is for her. She's so strong and makes it look so easy. I forget how sensitive and emotional she is, how much she cares about the others beneath that sarcasm and humor. This picture is a good reminder for me. Oneida tucked her phone back into her pocket after texting Jax back a thank you. She's a lot like you in that regard, Hawkeye. Degataga pulled her hand to him and kissed the back of it. Maybe not the humor part, but the rest can describe you as well.
Now, I didn't know what you were going to read until you just read it. But I have to say, for me, that is a perfect choice. Because that image of a being, and again, I'm kind of using this as more of a metaphor or a symbol, but that being that is a force of good, a force of light, a force of power, a force of strength, a force of vulnerability, with her hands buried in the scorched earth, buried in trauma, willing healing, willing life. To me, that could be an image on any of these covers, an image on a poster talking about the series as a whole. I think you made an excellent choice. Because I think that also, and it's beautifully written, and I think it is also a good example of the style of the work. Did you honestly just flip through? And why was it? Is it because of the perspective shift you decided you wanted to read from Hawk? Or did you flip through several of them?
I looked at the first one thinking, okay, so maybe people just want to hear from the first story to see if they want to read it.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, the perspective shift, because you have 5 books told from Ariella and her crew's standpoint. Here is somebody else looking into Ariella's life while examining her own.
Yeah.
So let's do that, because if you can identify or find something that grabs you in here, you're going to want to go back and read those to see what it is that made this person
Absolutely
do this.
100%. Yeah.
So I only looked at the 2 books. I looked at the first one and I did the same thing because he said, just flip it open to a page. So he was telling me to go for the first one.
Stacy,
Yes.
your significant other. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, maybe. But I kept going back.
Yeah.
My mind kept going back. I kept reaching for that one.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, I keep reaching for it. That's probably the one I should go for.
100%. 110%. Michelle, thank you for joining me today on Speak.
Thank you for having me.
Everyone, you can find all of Michelle's work at blueforgepress.com or at Amazon, of course. You can find Michelle on social media. Where should people find? Facebook?
Facebook, yes.
You can find Michelle on Facebook. My goodness, look up the I Spy series, get your hands on a few, and then go and request a character. Absolutely love that. Michelle, It has been
you.
so wonderful to talk to you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've probably all heard the saying, life is a journey. And just as valid, we could say life is an adventure. What I really like about the word journey, though, is that adventure almost always seems like it's just this rollicksome fun, whereas a journey I see as starts and stops, pitfalls, pratfalls, trauma, joy. With Michelle Lee's work, whether it's the humorous, supernatural, paranormal adventure mysteries of I Spy, or the incredibly deep, incredibly symbolic and lyrical Raven's Journey and those paths of healing, there's a common thread, and that is all of these characters are on a journey. They are, like we are, just doing the best they can. And I think ultimately, that and kindness is all we can ask of ourselves and each other. Thank you for joining us today for Speak. Speak was brought to you by the 501c3 Blue Legacy and made possible in part by grants from the National Endowment for the Arts and the Washington Arts Commission. If you'd like to be interviewed on Speak, or if you have a question that you'd like us to ask some of our future artisans, please write to us at blueforgefilms@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.